The best article I found about mentoring that really moved me the most was it was written by Rick Woolworth, and he started a group called, let me find the name of it. I lost it on my page. Oh, right. Telemachus. Telemachus was the name of Odysseus' son, to whom Mentor was the first mentor. And he started an organization called Telemachus, which is what appears to be a very high-end mentoring society. So he's the founder of this, so he spends all of his time thinking about mentoring young people into professionalism. I mean, think of this as like country club level mentoring, country club level networking. I highly recommend you go to their website. It's very interesting. But he talks about how, he titles the article, Great Mentors Focus on the Whole Person, Not Just Their Career. And he talks about how 75% of professional men and women wish they had a mentor, but only about 37% actually have one. And what that means is about half the people who wish they had a mentor don't have one. Vast majority focus on how it is practiced in the workplace and how organizations-wide programs are administered. They don't focus on mentoring the whole person, extending beyond the career to include discussions about behavior, values, relationships, parenting, finances, and even spiritual life. But if you really want to develop that trust that goes into really touching a person and moving them and developing them profoundly, you need to touch into their personal life too. It's just another way for them to accept you into their life. I wanted to talk about it because it leads into our profiles and success. I was looking at an article and I realized that a lot of very famous people have been mentored by other very famous people. Probably the most interesting for this community that I'm talking to was Mark Zuckerberg was mentored by Steve Jobs. Mark Zuckerberg started coming up in 2008. Steve Jobs only had a couple years to live at this point. He might have known it, he might not have, but he took Mark Zuckerberg under his wing and really taught him a lot of things about what it means to be an executive at the level that both of them sort of found themselves to be. In their world, you have very few people who are at the same pinnacle as you are. And I imagine Steve Jobs saw Mark Zuckerberg and said, this kid could benefit from the information that I have. And he probably also saw that this was one of the few truly apt pupils that he could ever have, because there's going to be very few people in Mark Zuckerberg's position ever. There was other notable relationships, though. The most interesting one was probably Aristotle was the mentor to Alexander the Great. We can only guess what directions that mentoring would have taken. How instrumental was Aristotle in Alexander the Great's desire for conquest and his thirst for power and his just insatiable lust for life. Maybe a lot, maybe a little. Maybe he had more to do with, helping Alexander sort of tamp down some of his more robust emotions so that he could be more functional. It could have gone both ways. Maya Angelou mentored Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is such a giant, and Maya Angelou is a great poet. It's sort of like, I imagine Oprah Winfrey could mentor almost any young person in her same position at this point, and she probably does. Mother Teresa had a mentor in Michael Vanderpeet. Christian Dior mentored Yves Saint Laurent. Warren Buffett mentored Bill Gates. I'd never heard of it called that until I read this article. I had heard that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates had sort of formed a charity together, but I had never thought of Warren Buffett as sort of Bill Gates' superior. I've never heard that before. It says, two of the world's most successful businessmen. Gates admits that over the years he has turned to Buffett for advice on various subjects and has referred to Buffett as one of a kind. So I guess there is some acknowledgement of this sort of elder and mentor-pupil sort of dynamic. Robert De Niro and Marlon Brando were both trained by Stella Adler, who had her own school, really taught them to be who they are as actors, the Stanislavski method of acting. Steven Spielberg is mentoring J.J. Abrams. How successfully is up for debate. Socrates mentoring Plato, Plato mentoring Aristotle, Aristotle mentoring Alexander the Great, so to speak. Gopal Krishna Gokal mentoring Mahatma Gandhi. That's interesting. And Mahatma Gandhi mentoring Nelson Mandela. Michelle Robinson, who later married Barack Obama, mentored him in the university, which is actually how they met. Audrey Hepburn mentoring Elizabeth Taylor. Fascinating on that one. Professor Dumbledore mentoring Harry Potter. That's sort of a stretch. And then Sir Freddie Laker mentoring Richard Branson. So, a lot of these guys who are really touching the sky and reaching the pinnacle of society, at some point along the way, were assisted by other people who have already been up there, who have already been on the national stage, who have already been globally successful in different ways. And not just money. Money is not everything. But it goes to show you that even people who we truly consider great, like Oprah Winfrey, like Barack Obama, I guess, like Aristotle, they had mentors too. And who knows how well they would have done without it. Especially with Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, that relationship it's difficult to know where Socrates ends and Plato begins. Partially because we don't have what Socrates said, but maybe because Plato was such a fine copy. And so for our profiles in success, we just really want to talk about how these are very successful people, great people. Some would say maybe some of the best ever, and still they look to somebody else. So if you really want to be the best that you can be, first determine who you want to be, and then go find somebody else who's already done it, who's done something like it. And they will be able to save you years of mistakes. That is almost certain and without question. And we are hoping to help you do the same if we can. I would like to avoid my own mistakes, so maybe I should find a mentor in this industry. But I just want to focus on the mentoring relationship, and if you don't have one, get one. It'll serve you time and time again. Thanks.